I think it might have been over a year now when the O-Knife Durin came on the scene. It was kind of different. The flashlight company Olight was putting out a knife under a new brand, O-Knife, and shockingly enough, this was kind of a smash hit. It resembled the classic Kaiser Militaw, and this knife just looked premium, had incredibly smooth action, again thanks to Kaiser being the OEM, and it featured a really nice green OAL special aluminum that Olight's been using on a lot of their higher end lights recently. And once I got it in hand, I really loved it and I still do. So when I saw that they were releasing another knife, this one, I knew I also had to pick it up. Keeping the same OAL construction, this time it shrinks it down into a rather small and kind of skinny footprint. Featuring much more of an almost classy gentleman's knife vibe, how could this knife stack up to its older brother? Let's find out. At first glance, this isn't a knife I would really typically be drawn to. With its really sharp lines, kind of narrow constructions, this almost looks something more along the lines of a gentleman's knife, yet after liking the Durin so much, I thought this would be worth a shot. And I'm really glad I gave it a chance because for one, it's a really interesting little knife. Because for one, this guy is just different. For example, where the heck is the pivot here? Because unlike almost every other single knife out there, this one is completely lacking a pivot screw and is instead hidden under the scales, making this almost have an almost seamless look, which keeps it looking really classy and premium in my opinion. Even the pocket clip here is really slim and understated without having any screws in the handle, and instead uses a single sole screw here in the back, allowing this to be switched over to either side. Just these little features like the hidden pivot and the lack of holes in the handle just make this seem so much cleaner, almost more pen-like rather than actually a knife. This just has such clean lines and is definitely what I'd call almost a modern gentleman's knife, but unlike some others out there that kind of really go hard in the design and lack in the useful area, this one still has a full-size blade and really enough handle to comfortably tackle almost everyday cutting tasks without any issue. And on my first impressions, this almost kind of resembles the CRKT Crossbones, and I believe that was one of the first true gentleman's knives that still had a little bit of a more modern look, and this one's actually pretty similar in my eyes. It still has that long, skinny, almost pen-like design, which makes it really great for slipping in pants, jacket, or a shirt pocket. And I'd really much rather pull this out in an office setting rather than something like a Demco or a Cold Steel, and this just looks so much more cleaner and classy in my opinion. Now let's talk about what you're actually getting here. This knife measures just over 8 inches overall. It has a 3.5 inch drop point blade, and it weighs only around 3.3 ounces, which is honestly pretty light considering its size. This is really similar to the Durin we looked at earlier. This also is a blade steel of Nitro V. It's a pretty nice stainless steel, has good edge wear resistance and edge retention, and especially really for the price. You see Nitro V on a lot of budget knives nowadays, and for good reason. It's not the most premium steel out there, but it can usually be found on knives at or under the $70 price point. But we'll cover more about that price later on, so just remember that. This blade itself has a rather clean drop point profile with a full flat grind that should be pretty comfortable opening boxes, slicing food, or just handling really everyday utility work. It's a rather long blade considering everything, and it's pretty thin behind the edge, and it came razor sharp, so it should actually be really good to handle cutting tasks rather than just looking good. This comes with a black finish, and though 9 times out of 10, I kind of prefer a clean satin blade, the black blade here with the green handles actually work really well, and I really like it. You can deploy the blade just by a single deployment method. It's a flipper here at the back. There's no thumb studs or fullers, so you actually use a flipper to deploy the blade. Fortunately, it works really well, and there's just enough room to actually get your finger on the flipper tab to fire it. The action is nice and crisp, and it flies out pretty nicely. It's not the absolute most fidgety knife out there, but the action is nice for what it is. This is just a standard liner lock, and the lockup is really nice, no blade play whatsoever, and after you disengage it, the blade comes shut with just the smallest bit of play. And action here is pretty well done for a flipper. But now we get the more unique aspect of the knife, and that's the handle. Rather than just standard normal aluminum, Olight uses what they call OAL, which is their proprietary aerospace grade aluminum. That's designed to be stronger, more scratch resistant than traditional aluminum while still remaining really lightweight. And they're really proud of this material, and they've put it on knives like the Durin from earlier and several different flashlights. I've had a few lights in this material, and now whether it's dramatically better than titanium is probably something only really long-term use will answer, but I do really like it. It's lightweight, still feels strong, and I've seen other reviewers trying to scratch the hell out of it. It doesn't even leave a mark. Do I need a knife handle to have this crazy strong material? No, but I do appreciate companies experimenting with different materials instead of just using the same aluminum, titanium, G10, and carbon fiber combinations that we've kind of been seeing throughout the years. Overall, the machining here is really clean, the finish feels nice in hand, and the overall fit and finish definitely matches what you'd expect in this price category, and it even feels a little bit above it, honestly. So is this worth the money? This knife has a retail price right around the $100 mark, and that puts it in a price bracket with some really serious competition. The knife market just continues to be more aggressive with each passing day, so trying to decide if something is a good value can kind of be a tough question. So it really depends on what you value in a knife. If you're shopping strictly on a performance per dollar basis, there's definitely less expensive options running more premium steels. I feel like this having a price tag of $100, yet having a slightly budget steel of Nitro V is a little bit of a mismatch. Normally you see this steel on knives closer to the $70 price point, so just something interesting to note. But steel choice aside, I think this knife is a little bit different. You're paying for premium materials, especially these aluminum handles, excellent machining, designer styling, clean aesthetics, smooth action, and a knife that kind of generally feels different from most production folders out there right now. I feel like with this style and clean design, again, this is more like a gentleman's knife. This almost reminds me more of like buying a watch. Sure, a cheaper one can tell the exact same time, but the craftsmanship, the design, and just how something makes you feel when you use it all have value too. So think of buying just a cheap basic rubber G-Shock. It works and it will absolutely put up to the abuse you throw at it. There's times when you want something a little bit classier, whether for work, church, date nights, etc. And that's kind of how I feel about this knife. You can grab yourself a Kaiser or a Civivi for half the price and do the exact same thing, but with this knife, I feel like you're drawn to the clean premium look instead. So if that's what you're looking for, this knife starts to make a little bit more sense. Now for some quick pros and cons to see where this knife really falls. Pros, first up, I just absolutely love the design here. It's rather elegant without being boring. It's modern without looking weird. It's just really simple, straight, clean lines. And though the pocket clip has just a little bit of branding here, it still looks really premium as it's just simple. I keep mentioning it, but it just feels more like a pen than a knife that also makes it really easy to carry comfortably. Yet despite its pretty slim size, this still packs a rather large knife blade, so it doesn't feel like you're cutting any corners anywhere. Second, the action is excellent, it deploys reliably every time, and it just feels satisfying. It's easy to disengage the lock, and the flipper tab is small and out of the way, but just large enough to get your finger on it every time. It just works really well. Third, I really like the materials. I love the OAL handle, the ceramic bearings, the machining including the hidden pivot, and the lack of body screws throughout. It just makes this feel like a more premium knife than it really is. Now, nothing's perfect. The biggest downside for some people is probably just going to be the deployment. If you're somebody who loves having multiple opening methods and constantly fidgets with your knife, this probably isn't going to scratch that itch. Only having one single deployment method, and it being the flipper, can be a little bit of a bummer. And even though I hate to say it, I'd argue some might like to see a front flipper here, as it would add another opening mechanism without taking away from the clean look of the knife. Second, the handle texture here is really subtle. It looks fantastic, but if you're wearing gloves or using the knife in wet conditions, there are definitely grippier options available. It's pretty slick and there really isn't any texture or really much to grab onto. Third, it would probably have to be the price. At $100, this is at the top of some budgets. This is marketed as being a premium knife and has a price to kind of reflect that. But at this price point, there's a lot of knives out there that offer better action, more deployment methods, and even more premium materials at or actually under the same price point. And now lastly, the styling may be a little bit too clean and basic for some people. There's no fancy inlays or really intricate design here, just a really simple slab of a handle. And for some, that might actually come across as too understated. At the end of the day, I think O-Knife did something that a lot of companies kind of struggle to do. They made a knife that actually has its own identity. Instead of copying whatever's currently popular, they leaned into a really clean design with premium materials and kind of thoughtful details like the hidden pivot and the interesting handle material. Is this the hardest use knife on the market? No. Is it the most fidget-friendly knife? Also no. But if you're looking for a premium, everyday carry knife that feels classy, carries really comfortably, has excellent action, and stands apart from the sea of other premium titanium frame locks, I think this knife deserves a serious look. It's one of those knives that doesn't really try to impress you immediately. Instead, it's the kind of knife that slowly grows on you every time you pull it out of your pocket. But that's just my take, but I'd love to hear yours down below. So what do you think of this guy? Is this your kind of EDC, or would you rather have something a little bit more aggressive? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.